Welcome back to Apex Sci-Fi. The oldest trick in the Book of Warfare is the Trojan horse. If you cannot break down the enemy's walls, you make them open the gate for you. You wrap your sword in a gift box. But in space you can't leave a wooden horse outside the airlock. The enemy has scanners. They have X-rays. They have mass spectrometers. So, how do you sneak a battalion of Marines into the most heavily guarded mining fortress in the galaxy? You don't hide them in a ship. You hide them in the scenery. Today's story is about the siege of the Krellian refinery. The Krell were strip mining the asteroid belt, taking resources that belonged to Earth. Their station was impenetrable. Their sensors saw everything. Except, apparently, the difference between a rock and a rock filled with high explosives and angry humans. If you love a plan that is so crazy it just might work, smash that like button. And if you want to see what happens when the delivery punches the deliver man in the face, subscribe and ring the bell. Stealth mode engaged. Don't breathe. The Krellian mining fortress World Eater sat in the center of the Sigma 9 asteroid belt. It was less a ship and more a mobile industrial city. 5 kilometers long, covered in point defense turrets and heavy shielding. Its purpose was simple. Grab asteroids, grind them into dust, extract the ore and spit out the gravel. Overseer Zorg stood in the control tower, watching the harvest. Efficiency is down 2%, Zorg grumbled, his cybernetic eye zooming in on the drone telemetry. The rocks in this sector are low-grade. Iron content is negligible. We have detected a Class A object, Overseer, the sensor drone chimed. Target Delta 9. Distance, 500 kilometers. Composition, high-density nickel-iron core. Very rich. Zorg looked at the screen. A large, potato-shaped asteroid was drifting lazily through the void. It was ugly, scarred by micrometeorites and cold. Excellent, Zorg clicked. Bring it in. Use the primary tractor beam. Do not let it drift away. Scanning for contaminants, the drone set automatically. The blue scanning beam washed over the rock. Scan complete. Exterior, silicate rock. Interior, dense metal. No energy signatures. No biological life signs detected. It is a dead rock. Harvest it, Zorg ordered. What Zorg didn't know, what his scanners couldn't see, was that the dense metal core wasn't iron. It was lead. 3 meters of solid lead shielding, lining a hollowed-out cavity in the center of the asteroid. And inside that cavity, sitting in the dark, freezing silence, were 50 Terran Marines. Sergeant Hardcase, Miller checked his oxygen gauge. Hold your breath, boys, Miller whispered over the hardline comms. They couldn't use wireless radio. The signals would leak through the rock. They were connected by cables plugged into each other's suits. They're scanning us, Private Jenkins said, his voice trembling slightly. I can feel the vibration. Let them scan, Miller said calmly. To them we're just a heavy lump of metal. Just don't sneeze. The team had been drifting in the void for 3 days. They had deployed from a stealth cruiser, encased in the hollow asteroid shell, and gently pushed into the path of the mining ship. It was the most terrifying weight of their lives. No heat. No light. Just the sound of their own breathing and the occasional ping of space dust hitting the outside of their stone prison. Suddenly the gravity shifted. Lurch. The Marines were thrown against their harnesses. Tractor beam. Miller hissed. We're caught. They're reeling us in. Inside the rock the sensation was nauseating. They were being pulled, spun, and dragged towards the World Eater. Time to impact? Miller asked the demo specialist, Corporal Diaz. Based on the tractor pull, 2 minutes until we hit the crusher maw. That was the danger. The World Eater didn't have a cargo bay. It had a crusher maw, a massive funnel fed by grinding gears designed to chew rocks into pebbles. If they mistimed the breach, they wouldn't be invading the ship. They would be turned into paste. Listen to the sound, Miller ordered. Wait for the clamps. Outside, the asteroid was pulled through the massive energy field of the hangar. It bypassed the shields because shields don't stop rocks. It floated past the automated turrets, which don't shoot rocks. It entered the main processing chamber. Clang. Grind. Massive hydraulic clamps slammed into the sides of the asteroid, holding it in place above the grinding pit. Clamps engaged, Diaz whispered. We are inside. Wait, Miller held up a hand. Wait for the atmosphere. The Krellian processing chamber pressurized. The hiss of gas entering the vacuum was audible through the rock walls. Miller watched his external pressure gauge. 0 psi, 5 psi, 14 psi. Breathable atmosphere. Green light, Miller said. Blow the shell. Overseer Zorg was watching the feed from the processing chamber. "Prepare the grinders," he ordered. "Crack the shell." The massive laser drills moved into position to slice the rock open. But before the lasers could fire, the rock moved on its own. Or rather, it exploded. Boom. Charges planted along the inside seams of the asteroid detonated simultaneously. The rock didn't just crack, it shattered outward. Massive chunks of stone flew across the processing bay, smashing into the delicate machinery of the grinders. Zorg stared at the screen. What? Did the rock contain volatile gas? Then the dust settled. And Zorg saw them. Standing on the remains of the asteroid core, anchored by magnetic boots, was a squad of armored figures. They weren't rocks. They were humans. Intruders. Zorg screamed. In the processing bay. Security. But it was too late. The Trojan horse was already inside the walls. Go. 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 Miller roared, cutting the hardline cable. The Marines activated their jump packs. They leaped from the floating debris of their ship onto the catwalks of the refinery. They were heavy shock troopers, armed with rotary cannons and grenade launchers. The Krell workers in the bay were unarmed drones and engineers. They stood no chance. Brrrrrty. The rotary cannons spun up. The Krell drones were shredded before they could even sound the alarm. Secure the gate, Miller ordered. Diaz ran to the blast doors leading to the rest of the ship. He slapped a breaching charge on the lock. Bang. The door blew inward. "We are in the ventilation system." Miller reported to command. Now that they were inside, the radio jamming from the hull was gone. "The package has been delivered." Proceeding to the bridge. On the bridge, Zorg was in a panic. "They came out of the stone," he yelled at his tactical officer. "How? How did they mask the life signs?" "Lead lining," the officer replied, scanning the debris data. "They were inside a shielded bunker, wrapped in rock. We pulled them in. We invited them. Seal the bulkheads. Flush the atmosphere. We can't. They have captured engineering. They have overridden the safety protocols." The Marines moved through the ship like a virus. They knew the schematics perfectly. They had studied the blueprints for months. They didn't fight every guard. They blew up the power junctions. They cut the gravity cables. They turned the massive World Eater into a dark, drifting tomb. Miller kicked open the door to the bridge. Zorg drew his plasma pistol, but he was too slow. Miller didn't shoot him. He simply walked up and backhanded the alien overseer with a gauntlet fist. Zorg flew across the room, crashing into his command chair. Miller loomed over him. The Marine's armor was covered in rock dust and oil. "You," Zorg wheezed. "You fight without honor. You hid like worms in the dirt." Miller opened his visor. He smiled. "We're miners, Zorg," Miller said. "Just like you. We just mine differently." Miller tapped his headset. "Command, this is Trojan Actual. The World Eater is secure. We are redirecting the refinery to Earth orbit. Thanks for the free ship." The Krellian Empire lost their biggest asset that day. But they lost something more important, their confidence. They stopped trusting their scanners. Every rock, every asteroid, every piece of debris became a potential threat. Mining operations ground to a halt. Krell captains were terrified to bring anything on board. They started blasting every asteroid into dust before bringing it in, wasting billions of credits and lost resources. The Trojan asteroid tactic forced the Krell to starve their own economy out of paranoia. Humanity didn't just win the battle. We won the logistical war. We turned the galaxy's rocks into ghosts. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Sometimes the best way to enter a room isn't to kick down the door. It's to wait for someone to carry you in. If you love a good sneak attack, hit that like button. Comment below. What creates more paranoia? An invisible enemy or an enemy that could be anything? Subscribe. And be careful what you bring into your house. Delivery signed.